Commander Vraal Doss had seen 300 years of conquest. He had watched star systems fold under the weight of the Keth Empire's warships. He had received the surrender of 17 different species, some of them weeping, some of them begging, and one of them memorably offering him a very large cake as a peace offering. He had never, not once in his long and decorated military career, been surprised. That was about to change. "Sir," said Lieutenant Supreme, pulling up a holographic display with the kind of nervous energy that suggested he already knew this briefing was going to be embarrassing. "The planet we have designated Target 7 is classified as a farming world." Vraal leaned back in his command chair and let out a long, satisfied breath. A farming world, populated by soft, slow creatures who grew vegetables and raised animals and had no concept of orbital bombardment. Perfect. The Keth Empire had been expanding its resource territory for decades, and farming worlds were the easiest kind. You showed up. You pointed cannons at the surface. The locals surrendered their grain, their livestock, and their dignity. Everyone went home. Simple. And the species? Vraal asked. Supreme hesitated. That hesitation should have been a warning. It was not a long hesitation, barely a pause, but it carried within it the weight of something the lieutenant very much did not want to say out loud. "Humans, sir." The bridge went quiet. Not the kind of quiet that follows a shocking announcement. The kind of quiet that follows a word nobody on the crew has ever had reason to worry about. Humans. Vraal had heard the name before, of course. Some minor species on the outer edge of map territory. Bipedal. Squishy. Known, according to intelligence reports, for their agriculture, their chaotic political systems, and their alarming tendency to eat things that should not be edible by any biological standard. They are farmers? Vraal confirmed. Yes, sir. Mostly grain, livestock, and something called soybeans, which apparently they use for everything. Vraal nodded slowly. Then, this will take 40 minutes. 50 if they ask questions. The fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel above a planet that was, admittedly, quite beautiful. Green and gold fields stretched across entire continents, interrupted occasionally by small towns with unpronounceable names like Dustbrook and Pelham Crossing, and, puzzlingly, one settlement labeled only as Hog Heaven. Vraal stared at that last one for a moment, decided it was not worth investigating, and gave the order to hail the surface. The communication channel opened. On the view screen appeared a human. He was broad, weathered, wearing a faded hat that had probably been through more conflicts than most soldiers. His name, he informed them without being asked, was Dale Kupper. He was a regional coordinator for something called the Prairie Alliance Farmers Collective, and he was eating what appeared to be a sandwich while they talked. "So," Dale Kupper said, chewing thoughtfully, "you fellas want our grain. We are claiming this world as a resource territory of the Keth Empire," Vraal announced, using his best voice, the one that had made 17 species weep. "You will begin transferring agricultural output immediately or face orbital bombardment." Dale Kupper took another bite of his sandwich. "Uh-huh," he said. Vraal blinked. "Did you understand the threat?" "Oh, I understood it just fine." Dale leaned back in his chair, which squeaked. "You want our grain. You got big ships. You think that means we hand things over." He paused. "Can I ask you something?" Vraal, who had never in 300 years of conquest been asked if someone could ask him something, said yes. "You run those big scans of yours when you showed up?" "Of course. Standard procedure." "And what did those scans show you?" Supreme pulled up the data. His face changed. His face changed in a specific way. That faces change when the information on the screen is telling you something that your brain is actively refusing to process. "Sir," Asa said quietly, "the scan is showing weapon signatures. A significant number of weapon signatures. From the military installations? From the farms, sir." Vraal looked at the view screen. Dale Kupper had finished his sandwich. He was now looking at something off-camera with the calm, patient expression of a man waiting for a bus he knows is already on its way. "Every silo on this planet," Asa continued, his voice climbing slightly in pitch with each word, "is also a missile battery. Every grain transport is armored. Every farming community has Sir, they have a collective defense grid. It covers the entire planet. It is quite large. Vraal stared at Dale Kupper. Dale Kupper looked back at him. See? Dale said pleasantly, we've been farming this land for 6 generations. And every generation, something comes along thinking we are easy pickings. Could be weather, could be disease, could be bank foreclosures, could be, apparently, space empires. He shrugged. We prepared for all of it. The bridge was very, very quiet. So here's what is going to happen. Dale continued, folding his hands on the desk with the patience of a man who has had this exact conversation before in different forms for most of his life. You're going to keep those ships right where they are. You are not going to touch my fields. And you are going to listen very carefully to what I say next. Vraal, commander of the strongest fleet in the known galaxy, leaned forward. Okay, he said. He had never said okay to anyone in 300 years. Good, said Dale Kupper. And then he smiled, which was somehow worse than anything else he had done so far. Vraal Doss had a very specific image of himself. Conqueror, strategist, the kind of commander whose name made junior officers spill their drinks at dinner tables across the Empire. He was not, under any circumstances, the kind of commander who sat at his own flagship and listened to a farmer explain things to him. And yet, here he was, listening. You want to know the funny part? Dale Kupper said, pulling up something on his end of the screen. Some kind of tablet device covered in what appeared to be coffee rings and grain dust. We did not even build most of this ourselves. First wave of raiders came through about 40 years ago. Little purple fellas, real aggressive, thought they could take the wheat stores in the Nolan Valley. What happened to them? Vraal asked before he could stop himself. Oh, they left. Dale paused. Most of them. Supreme made a very small sound beside Vraal. It was the kind of sound a person makes when they're doing math in their head, and the answer keeps coming out wrong. After that, Dale continued, the Farmers Collective had a long meeting. Real long. 3 days, lots of coffee. Somebody brought a pie. And at the end of it, we all agreed that if the universe was going to keep sending problems our way, we were going to stop treating defense as an afterthought. He tapped the tablet. You know what farmers are good at, Commander? Vraal did not answer, mostly because he suspected the answer was going to embarrass him. Planning, Dale said. Long-term planning. You plant a seed, you do not get a harvest tomorrow. You work the soil for months. You think 5 seasons ahead. You account for drought, for frost, for blight. He looked directly into the camera. You account for space empires. On the tactical display beside Vraal, Asa was quietly pulling up readings that got worse with every passing second. The weapon signatures were not just coming from silos. They were embedded in irrigation systems, in transport hubs, in what the scanner identified as a structure labeled Benton County Annual Fair, an emergency defense perimeter. There was a Ferris wheel visible in the satellite imagery. It was also, apparently, a targeting array. Sir, Asa whispered, the grid has a range that extends past our current fleet position. Vraal absorbed that information with the stillness of a man who has just realized he walked into a room from which there is only one door, and he did not come in through it. Now, I am not an unreasonable person, Dale was saying, in the tone of someone who was being very reasonable precisely because he did not have to be. The collective does not want to fight. Fighting is bad for the fields. Stray ordnance tears up topsoil something awful, and we just got the south quarter back into rotation after the flooding 2 years ago. He shook his head with genuine regret. So we're to do this differently. Differently, Vraal repeated. You came here for resources. I understand that. Empires need feeding, same as everything else. Dale set the tablet down. See here is my offer. You want agricultural product? You buy it. Fair price. Negotiated contract. Proper trade agreement. We got surplus this season, good harvest, and we are not opposed to doing business with new customers. He raised one finger. But you come at us like raiders again, and I promise you, Commander, those ships of yours are going to be sitting in our fields permanently, and not in a way that benefits anyone. The silence on the bridge stretched out like something alive. Vraal looked at his tactical officer. His tactical officer looked at the readings. The readings looked back at everyone with the quiet confidence of a system that had been waiting 40 years for exactly this moment. Lieutenant Preem, Vraal said slowly, "Sir, get me a trade specialist." Supreme blinked. "Sir, we do not have a trade specialist. This is a conquest fleet." "Then get me whoever on this ship is best at math and has the least amount of pride." 3 hours later, the Keth Empire signed its first ever agricultural import agreement. The terms were, by any standard, extremely fair. For the humans, the Keth paid in refined metals, which the collective had been quietly needing for equipment upgrades anyway. Delivery schedules were firm. Penalties for late payment were, Vraal noted with some discomfort, quite detailed and very specific about what would happen to ships that missed deadlines. Dale Kupper signed the agreement with a pen that had a little plastic rooster on top of it. "Pleasure doing business," he said. Vraal looked at the rooster pen. He looked at Dale. He looked at the contract that his empire's finest legal team would have been proud of, produced in 3 hours by a human farmer eating what appeared to be a second sandwich. "You have done this before," Vraal said. It was not a question. "Twice," Dale confirmed. The Gorvani Syndicate tried the same approach about 12 years back. They are good customers now. Never miss a payment. Vraal sat back. Outside the viewport, his fleet, 300 warships representing the greatest military power in the known galaxy, held their positions with the careful stillness of vessels whose commanders had all quietly read the same tactical report and reached the same conclusion. "Can I ask you one more thing?" Vraal said. "Go ahead." "Were you afraid when we appeared above your planet?" Dale Kupper thought about this with the same steady patience he seemed to apply to everything. Outside his window, visible even through transmission, golden fields rolled under a wide prairie sky. "Nope," he said finally. "We had the silo batteries online before your ships finished dropping out of transit. Tracking solutions were locked inside the first 2 minutes." He picked up his coffee mug. "I was more worried about whether the Henderson boy had finished rotating the south field before the rain came in." Vraal stared. "Did he?" "Yep. Good kid. Works hard." Dale took a sip of coffee. "You fellas ever want to see the operation up close? We do tours in the fall. Real educational." The transmission ended. Vraal Doss sat in the silence of his bridge, surrounded by officers who were all very carefully not looking at him, and thought about 300 years of conquest. He thought about 17 surrenders. He thought about the cake. Then he thought about farmers, about people who planned 5 seasons ahead, who buried their defenses under topsoil in county fairs, who negotiated trade agreements with the same calm they used to wait out a drought. "Log the contract," he said, finally, "and update the species classification for humans. What should I change it to, sir?" Asa asked. Vraal looked out at the golden planet below. "Do not approach without an appointment.